So guys, when we look at demand and supply in an aggregate form, we are now looking at the whole economy, not one single firm, not one single sector, but the whole economy. So when we look at aggregate demand, it's the first thing we look at. The aggregate demand is simply, by definition, the total amount of effective demand, right? Effective demand in an economy as a whole. So we're looking at the complete demand of the economy, and this demand may include demand by firms, this demand may include demand by consumers, demand by government, demand by even like foreigners for our goods. What do we call demand by foreigners for of our goods? What's the word for that? It's called, when foreigners demand our good, we call that exports. Isn't that true? And when we demand foreigners good, we call that imports. Exactly. So we're going to look at all the total demand. So when we look at aggregate demand of the economy, the whole demand of the economy, we're looking at C plus I plus G plus X minus M. I want you guys to write this: C plus I plus G plus X minus M, where C is your consumption, right? I is your investment, G is your government expenditure, and expenditure. X is your exports, and M is your imports. Okay, so what is consumption? Consumption is consumption by, who does the consumption? Consumers, or we call it households. So C is consumption by households. I, on the other hand, is investment by firms. Okay, so this is where the demand that is generated by firms. What do firms invest on? Guys, what do firms invest on? Capital goods. Very good. Who said that? Good job. Capital goods are basically defined as those goods that help us produce more consumer goods in the future. Remember, when we said capital goods had a definition that it is basically those goods which are helping us produce more goods in the future, right? Similarly, government expenditure is G, X is exports, and M is imports. So this makes up our total demand in the economy, which is C plus I plus G plus X minus M. Now, C, we believe, is the largest component. And guys, C basically means that this is the consumption done by firms on goods and services that are produced in the domestic economy. And the main factor we believe that influence this is likely to be your real income. The more income that you have. By the way, real, and I'm going to talk about real in a little while. Real basically means, real income means income adjusted for inflation. Okay, I'm going to have a discussion about this in a little while. But when you look at the consumption, we say consumption depends on income basically. More income people have, more consumption they will have. And the larger the income, basically, the larger the consumption. Similarly, the lower the income, the lower the consumption. So when real incomes are relatively high, households will tend to spend more than when real incomes are low. Make sense? So income goes up. Why? For income goes up, you will see consumption to go up. Are we good? Does that make sense, guys? Are we going to move on? People online, is that fine? Is there any question? Okay, guys, moving on. After consumption, we talk about investment. Remember, investment is basic expenditure by firms on basically on goods and services that we call basically capital goods. Okay, and when you look at this expenditure on capital goods, basically what we say is that in this kind of an expenditure, we are trying to sort of buy goods that help us produce more goods in the future. So investment is, by when you say investment, if let's say I decide to buy shares of a company, is that investment? No, it's not. in our definition, this is an expenditure done by firms. And the reason why firms do that is because they are basically producing more output in the future. Remember, investment, it might be an investment for you when you're buying a good or service, but you need to remember this, that your your expenditure in shares is basically not an investment. Make sense? This is your personal, I mean, we call it investment, but from an economic definition, investment is only done by firms on capital goods. They're buying more goods in the future. They're buying more goods. They're buying goods that can produce them more goods in the future. Does that make sense? Any questions, guys? Then comes government expenditure. Government expenditure, guys, we believe is this expenditure that is basically on government's operations. So we say this is expenditure on government operations. Like, for example, government is also spending money, right? So when it comes to government expenditure, we say this can be basically on public goods. It could be on, for example, merit goods, providing street lights, running their own operations. All of this would come under government expenditure. Okay, so that is also an important role that government plays, where government is spending on goods and services, and government has its own expenditure. For example, government has to pay its own salaries, right? वो सारे खर्चे भी that all expenditure would come into government expenditure. Okay, then what we do, guys, is that once we have all that domestic sort of demand, then we also subtract what we call sometimes imports from our equation, because consumption on goods and services may include consumption on foreign goods. So subtract all the foreign imports, right? Why do I do that? Why do I subtract imports from my AD equation, C plus I plus G plus X minus M? Why do I need to subtract it? And why do we, and why am I adding exports and subtracting imports? Who consumes exports, guys? Wasif online, who consume, or anyone here, who consumes the exports? Foreigners consume the exports, right? And in return, we get the income. So can I say exports is the demand for our goods by foreigners, right? So that's why I add that, because all the goods go out, money comes into my economy. So that's the demand for my economy's goods. But what about imports? Import is that expenditure which is happen on foreign goods. And I need to subtract that because money goes out of the economy, goods may come in. Make sense? Will imports increase my GDP? And the answer is imports don't increase my GDP. Can my country's GDP want to go up because of imports? It will probably go down, because our economy, if it's buying more foreign goods, then they're not buying domestic goods. So imports is actually expenditure that is needs to be sort of subtracted, because this is expenditure on goods and services produced abroad. Wasim is saying we want the demand in the country, and the exporters are consumers by foreign, and exports are exporters are consumers by foreign individuals, whereas the imports are the individual consumption in the country. Or yeah, so Wasim, I agree with you. So you're basically saying that for you need to look at the demand for the country. So you need to add all the demand even by foreigners, but subtract all the demand which has been generated by our country, but on not spent on our goods, but foreign goods. Make sense? Because that is going to increase foreigners' GDP or output. GDP kya hota hai? What is GDP? GDP is gross national product or gross domestic product, which means total output of the economy. Okay, I'm going to talk about this in 1 minute. Okay, let's now look at how the curve is. Okay, so let's draw the curve, and I'm going to explain the whole concept in 1 minute about real versus nominal also. On my x-axis, on my y-axis, I'm going to write price level. Okay, so I'm not writing prices. Remember, in micro we used to write price. Now we're writing price level. Now, what's the difference between price level versus price? This is the whole economy's sort of aggregate price of goods. Make sense? So this is the total price of goods, right? On the other hand, this on my y-axis, I'm sorry, on the x-axis, so on the y-axis, I'm writing price level. On the x-axis, I'm writing real GDP. Okay, what is real GDP? GDP means total output. GDP means gross domestic product, which basically means your total. Gross means total, domestic means within the country, and product means output. So total output within the country. Okay, so gross domestic. So what is the difference between real versus, we'll talk about this in 1 minute, real versus nominal. Sometimes you will see in your exams they may say nominal GDP, sometimes they will say real GDP. So let's talk about the difference between nominal GDP versus real GDP. Okay, guys. So what is nominal GDP versus real GDP? And before I draw this diagram, I want to explain this difference. So guys, if I say an economy has a price level of $1, all the goods in the country are for $1. Okay, and let's say the total quantity that we are making is 100 units, right? What's the value of this GDP? Anyone? The value of the GDP would be $100. Why? Very good. So I'm going to write this, that the real GDP is $100, and I'm also going to say nominal GDP is also $100. I'm going to explain this in 1 minute. The difference, what will happen next year, guys. So this is your year one. Next year, for example, year two, your price level goes to $2. So prices are doubling. Isn't that true? The prices are doubling, but the quantity remains 100. Okay. If somebody asks you what's the value of your real GDP, remember I explained real GDP a few minutes ago. It's adjusted for inflation, which means there's no inflation in it. Now, inflation is what? Rise in price level. Has the price level doubled? Has the output increased? No. So my real GDP basically means that keeping prices constant. If I keep prices constant, guys, what's going to be the real GDP now? Real GDP would be keeping this price and this output, so real GDP would be $100 exactly. And nominal GDP would be, nominal GDP will not be 100, but it will actually be 200. So in other words, nominal GDP is a GDP that is basically not adjusted for inflation or price level. Because will you be well off, guys? Will you be well off if the prices go up and the quantity doesn't go up? Will you be well off? Like as a country, will we be well off? We will be well off, for example, if this happens. What if this becomes 120? If this becomes 120, guys, what's my real GDP? My real GDP would be $1 times 120, or real GDP would be 120, and nominal GDP would be 240. So nominal GDP can go up either because prices are going up or because of output of going up, or both. But real GDP only goes up when the output goes up. And a rise in real GDP basically means more output, which means more economic welfare, more prosperity. Why is Japan better than Pakistan? Because Japan has more output produced. You know what I mean? They have more resources probably also, and then more output as a result of that. Make sense? So whenever we say real GDP, real GDP basically means we are looking at keeping prices constant, versus nominal means prices can go up. Prices are not constant, and therefore real GDP is a good indicator of economic welfare versus nominal GDP. That's why, guys, when we're writing this axis, we're looking at real GDP rather than nominal GDP. Make sense? Any questions about real GDP? Are we good to move on? So real GDP means keeping prices constant, and it can only go up when there's a rise in output. Okay, now when we make our aggregate demand curve, our aggregate demand curve looks like this. Okay, where again AD is equal to C plus I plus G plus X minus M. Okay, and what we are AD curve is downward sloping. Just like our demand is downward sloping, AD curve is also downward sloping. Okay, why is it downward sloping? I'm going to talk about this in 2 minutes. But basically, if the price level goes down from P naught to P1, remember this, guys, an important thing to remember. You don't write Q, you write Y. In macro, the output, real GDP output is Y. Y basically means output. Output is your basically income or expenditure, and that's why all of this we say is Y. My question to you guys is, why is output equal to income is equal to expenditure? Just 1 minute of attention from everyone. This is also not in my notes, so you need to understand this, that we believe in an economy, the amount of output that an economy produces will be sold, right? Makes sense? Will be sold. So this value of output should be equal to the expenditure on that output. Okay, let's say I make 5 donuts, right? So the value of the donuts will be equal to the expenditure that is made on that donut, sold or not sold, but kharcha to hua hai, right? Somebody has spent money to make those donuts, and that's the amount of income that is going to be generated. So output is equal to expenditure is equal to income, and that's why whenever I'm writing the real value, real output, I'm writing Y as a symbol. I'm not writing Q. Q is a micro symbol. Quantity is a micro symbol. But yeah, here you're looking at value of output. So real GDP expressed in dollar terms is what you're writing here. Makes sense? You're not writing a number of units here, but you're writing the value of output. Got it? And that's why it's a Y rather than a Q. Are we good? Okay. Now, a couple of questions that we need to ask. Why is, let me write this in fact, this question. Why is AD curve downward sloping? Okay, so we come up with 3 reasons. Number 1 is income effect. Number 2 is your substitution effect. And last one is what we call interest rate effect. Okay, a lot of MCQs come from this discussion. So income substitution and interest rate effect. So we need to be prepared for that. Okay. So guys, when the price level goes down, right? Can I say this? Things will become relatively cheaper, right? So, for example, if the canteen is giving you a roll for a chicken roll for, let's say, 100 rupees, right? And now suddenly the chicken roll is for 50 rupees, and let's say every day you bring 200 rupees to canteen to school. Do you think your purchasing power of those 200 rupees will go up? Because suddenly if you had 200 rupees, you used to buy 2 chicken rolls, but now for 200 rupees you can buy 4 chicken rolls. Isn't that true? So can I say, if the prices in an economy go down, price level goes down, your purchasing power will go up? Yeah, the money can buy you much more. So basically that's what we will talk about, that when you look at income effect, we say this, that when the price level goes down, your purchasing power, or in other words, we say real income goes up. And that basically means if the price level goes down, so we say this, it changes like this. I won't talk about this 1 minute. Just hear me out, that your purchasing power goes up. When your purchasing power goes up, what will you do with that extra purchasing power? We will buy more. So there will be more expenditure. There will be more expenditure causing basically consumption to go up. Firms might want to sort of invest more, etc. And that will cause GDP to go up, or in other words, GDP or Y, which is a symbol, to go up. C for consumption, remember? So what is happening is that when your purchasing power goes up, Adam, did I answer your question now? So you are basically, this is basically what I'm saying. You go from point A to point B. When the price level goes down, your purchasing power goes up, which makes you consume more, and therefore ultimately higher consumption, higher investment will mean GDP goes up. Okay, so it's a movement along the demand curve. It's not a shift of the demand curve, it's a movement along the demand curve. Why is it a movement along the demand curve? What's the source of the change in income? It's the price level that went down. Do we all get this? Does that make sense? People here, do we get the idea that when the price level goes down, because your purchasing power is going up, and the purchasing power is a very important concept, because right now, just recently, the government said that the oil is going to become 2 rupees more expensive, right? And you will see inflation will also go up, price level of the whole economy goes up. So when things become expensive, suddenly purchasing power may go down, and it can affect all of us. Similarly, when things become cheaper, it may encourage all of us to spend more, and that may actually be good for the economy because GDP then goes up. Okay, so that's your price, your first effect, which is called income effect. Why is it called income effect? Because lower price level makes your income go up, or purchasing power of your income go up, and because the same 200 rupees given to you by your parents means it can buy you more, which means that the income is same, but real income, the purchasing power, is going up. Those 200 rupees can now buy you 4 chicken rolls versus 2 chicken rolls, which means real income is going up. Your money in the pocket is still 200, but it can buy you much more. Make sense? Now, what is substitution effect, guys? Substitution effect basically says this, that whenever your price level goes down, okay, let's say Pakistan's price level is going down. Can I say that Pakistan's or a country's exports will become cheaper? Can I say that? Because if things are cheaper in Pakistan, suddenly our exports will become cheaper. And that would basically mean exports will go up, right? At the same time, imports will be cheaper or expensive? Expensive, but prices are not changing for imports. Imports will be, who said comparatively? Good job. What's your name? Wajia, very good job. Will be relatively expensive as compared to domestic goods. They are the same price, but domestic goods are becoming cheaper, so they are relatively expensive as compared to domestic goods, which would mean imports will go down. So in other words, when price level goes down, X minus M goes up. And when X minus M goes up, GDP goes up. Got it? So substitution effect says, as compared to your foreign goods, you will see that domestic goods will become relatively, as compared to foreign goods, domestic goods will become relatively cheaper, right? So X minus M will go up. Make sense? So price level goes down, X minus M goes up, so GDP goes up. Makes sense? So the first one was more like a domestic sort of C and I going up. Here, international effect on the economy. People online, are we getting it? Because you guys are super, super quiet. You don't need, it's good to see almost 50% plus kids are coming to school. That's good. I don't know, but beyond this number, I guess it's going to be very difficult because there's social distancing that is happening right now, which is not going to happen, right? Because more kids then come to class. Okay. Any questions about the second effect? Are we going to move on to third effect, interest rate effect? Yeah. Guys, what are interest rates? What are interest rates? It's a price of loan, right? You go and let's say borrow some money from somebody. You have to pay that price to that guy for using his. It's like a rent in a way of a loan. Like if you take somebody's property, you need to pay rent. If you take somebody's money, you need to pay interest, right? That's the way we look at it. That it's like if you don't have the money or liquidity, you may need to borrow. When you borrow, you need to pay the rent. And at the end of the day, just like you return somebody's property, you need to return somebody's principal amount that you borrowed, right? When the interest rates, so interest rate symbol is R, okay, small r. When interest rate goes down, what happens? When interest rate goes down, let's say from, let's say 10%, so 10% to let's say 5%, okay? So what will happen when it comes to, let's say me who wants to save? If I want to save money, let's say I was saving, let's say $500 and the interest rate was 10%, how much interest I would earn if I give it to the bank? I would get $50. Suddenly, let's say interest rate goes to 2%, right? Then I'll be like, okay, now the interest rate has gone to 2%. The bank will not anymore give me $50. The bank will give you 500 times 2 is $10. And I'll be like, you know what? When interest rate goes down, the incentive to save will fall. Why? Because you'll be like, it's not worthwhile. Previously, I used to get $10, $50. Now I'm only getting $10. Now think about from a borrower's perspective. Borrower, when he used to borrow $500, he used to pay $50 interest. But now borrower who's borrowing $500, he's only paying $10 interest. Can I say the cost of borrowing is also going down? So when the incentive to save goes down and the cost of borrowing goes down, consumers will consume more, right? Firms who are borrowing to invest would love to invest more, right? So C goes up, I goes up, which would mean the GDP will again go up. Make sense, guys? So this is the third effect. We say that when the lower interest rates would cause basically C and I to go up. But there is an important part that you need to ask me, guys. Where is the price level here? Okay, because I just told you if the interest rate goes down, C goes up. What's the relation between price level and interest rate? So I want to explain that here. Now, once we know this, that interest rate goes down, GDP can go up. You need to understand this when the price level goes down. Okay, when the price level of an economy goes down, why does your interest rate also goes down is something which we need to understand. Any questions about the first one, guys? Is there any problem about the first one? Do we understand the relationship between R and C and I? Okay, because before I talk about this relationship, because what we want to say is that when the price level goes down, interest rate goes down, which will cause C to go up, I investment to go up, consumption to go up, investment, and therefore GDP to go up. Are we going to move on? Wasif, so my question is, why does price level go down and interest rate also goes down because of that? Guys, what happens if the things are when the price level goes down and things are really cheap? Then suddenly you can understand this, that uh, your need to sort of borrow money, will it go down because suddenly things are cheaper? Can I say that? Why do you borrow money? You borrow money basically, in this case, guys, you're borrowing money when you because you are your current money or your current sort of income may not be sufficient to buy you, for example, goods and services. When price level goes down, what we say is also this, that it would basically result in, uh, let me write this, a lower price level. 1 minute. A lower price level will cause higher purchasing power or real income, and therefore the demand for money, or like demand for money basically means that you're demanding money basically for undertaking transaction will fall. Okay, which would mean people basically will find um, um, the need to borrow to go down, and therefore interest rates will fall. Okay, remember, interest rates are price of um, price of money or price of loans. So why do people borrow more when prices are high? Because their current money is not sufficient to make them buy goods and services, so they may need to borrow more. And when they borrow more, the demand is high for loans, and when the demand is high, the price will be high for loans. And what is the price of loans? Interest rates. Similarly, when the price is low, we say that interest rate fall because people will be like, I don't need to borrow as much as I want to borrow now, so the demand for money will fall, and therefore interest rate, which is the price of money, in other words. And I'm saying money because money is like loans that you're taking from somebody. Money could be money is like a commodity right now. I'm treating it like that because if I have money, right, and let's say Azam says, hey, sir, I need money for my college, can you give me a loan, right? So he has a demand for money, and I will provide him. So I have a supply of money, and I'll charge a price which is interest rate. Make sense? So for us, basically, this is important. So coming back to it, guys, when your price level goes down, the interest rate falls, right? And the reason why interest rate falls is basically when people have a higher purchasing power, they don't need to borrow as much, and that's why, just like demand for any good falls, price falls, does demand for loans fall, right? Or lending falls, interest rate falls. And when interest rate falls, it becomes cheaper to borrow. In other words, it incentivizes people to buy more, so consumption will go up, investment will go up, and therefore GDP goes up. Now, an important point to understand, guys, guys, all these three reasons are movement along the curve. Okay, they're all movement along the curve. They are not shift of the curve. The shift of the curve would be for the same price level if something else happened. Okay, I'm going to talk about that tomorrow, but I'm right now talking about only movement along the curve. Okay, and in terms of notes, guys, these are the three reasons we've written here: income effect, substitution effect, and interest rate effect. So I wrote this here: when prices are low, interest rate will tend to be relatively low, which would encourage both investment and consumption, as interest rate can be seen representing the cost of borrowing to households and firms. Okay, so lower price level means lower interest rates, so you need to remember that. Tomorrow, guys, we will discuss shift of the AD curve. Any questions here?